Yo, what up? Welcome back to another episode. Before we get started, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor for today's episode. No one. Well, here it is, the camera of the hour. This is the Canon AE-1. It's a 35mm SLR film camera straight from your grandparents' attic. I feel like the Canon AE-1 is pretty synonymous with a few things, like original flavor Lay's, golf, plain yogurt, Toyota Corollas, a turkey sandwich that's just bread and a single slice of turkey. And that's it. I'm not sure that I can be more clear where I stand with this camera. This is the first film camera that I ever purchased for myself, so it holds a special place in my heart. I got it on eBay as part of an estate sale back in 2015 for about $70. Being my first camera and all, I'd say that this is a pretty solid camera for beginners. It's got a pretty basic light meter in it, and most of the settings are manual. It's a really good camera for learning about the three basics of photography: ISO, shutter speed, and disappointment. Let's take a look. So yeah, here it is. I have the all black version of this camera, whereas typically this camera is found as silver with black accents, and also a limited edition Guy Fieri model for some reason. I also have an auto film winder here on the bottom, which I'll get into a little bit later, but for now I'll just take it off. Cool. You can load your film into this camera like many other 35mm SLR cameras. Just pop the back by lifting this cap here. Boom. This camera does not have a quick load system, so you're gonna have to improve your film tip insertion techniques. That sounds dirty. And close that up. Okay, so getting started, your ISO and shutter speed can be changed right up here on top of the camera, this little dial. Lift the outer ring to change your ISO. As you may be able to see, the green ISO lettering is changing, but the shutter speed is remaining the same. This is important for the camera's light meter if you plan to use it. Of course, f-stop can be adjusted here on your lens. This camera natively accepts Canon FD mount lenses, which is the era of lenses before Canon's EF line. FD stands for frankly disappointing, which was conveniently also my nickname in grade school. If you can't tell, I'm not really a big fan of FD lenses, really. The three that I've used were not very sharp and fell off quite drastically in the corners. So yeah, it's possible that I was just using three bad lenses. The same way it's possible that a salad and water is what made you shit your pants, not the 7 shots of tequila and Midnight Crunchwrap Supreme from Taco Bell. Cool. With standard FD mount lenses like the 28mm f2.8 here, you can typically choose an automatic setting on the lens, which talks to the light meter on the AE1 and electronically chooses the best f-stop for you based on your shutter speed and ISO. If you're looking for something even more advanced, I believe the follow-up camera, the AE1 program, has more features because it has a more substantial computer in it. But I don't use that camera because it's basically Skynet. I actually don't use the auto f-stop feature on this camera because I typically shoot third-party lenses like the Takumar 35mm f2 lens, though lately, speaking of lens corner fall off, I've been using the Helios 58mm f2.8 lens. There we go. I also have a Takumar 135mm f3.5 lens that I use from time to time, but yeah, it kind of looks like Megatron's dick when mounted, so go ahead and throw the Helios back on here. All three lenses are M42 screw mount lenses, so I can just leave the M42 to FD adapter on the camera and screw and unscrew lenses at will. So on this camera, shutter speeds range from 2 seconds all the way down to 1/1000th of a second with a bulb mode as well. The Guy Fieri model comes with a added Flavortown mode as well. Here are some of my favorite shots with this camera. The TTL light meter, which is a through the lens light meter on this camera, is pretty solid in general. In the viewfinder, you'll see that you have your f-stop values and the needle will point to the one it recommends using. Simple as that. If you're using third-party lenses like I am, all you have to do is get that needle as close to the middle as possible. I verified this by comparing the reading from the viewfinder to the reading on my Sekonic L608 light meter, and it checks out. So the thing with FD lenses is that it will not engage the f-stop until you fire the shutter. In other words, if you're used to a manual camera with a viewfinder that dims down when you stop down the aperture, This camera will not do that. However, it does have a depth of field preview button here at the base of the shaft, lens. All you have to do is press it in and you'll see what you get. Anyway, yeah, this is the camera that's been with me on all of my trips the past few years. Mostly because it's pretty solid, pretty lightweight, and it's got everything it needs right here with it. I brought this camera with me when Monica and I did our 2-week US road trip. And then when we went to Europe the following year. And I carried it with me up to Everest Base Camp last year. So to say it's been a part of the journey is an understatement for sure. And I plan to keep using it. In fact, I plan to be buried with it. That way in hell, I can continue to take pictures of my friends. So a few things to watch out for on this camera. My biggest complaint so far has been the film roll winder release, I guess, on the bottom here. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally bumped this with my pinky and wound to the next shot only to accidentally double expose the shot I was on. I guess they gotta put it somewhere, but man, I've ruined so many shots this way. It's me behind the lens, so I don't really think the world is at too much of a loss there. Another thing, I'm not sure if this is a common issue with these cameras, but my shot counter right here doesn't really work beyond shot 10, but that might just be the camera telling me to quit wasting its time. I've had some issues with the film advance lever here in the past as well. It actually broke and I had to get it fixed, but for a while I just used this extra part down here, the auto film advance attachment, which I ultimately decided to leave on the camera because it helps me grip it better. So if you're considering investing in this camera, the status of the film advance and shot counter may be something you want to inquire about. You flip the auto film advance on and off down here. So if I fire a shot here, that's what it sounds like. Oh crap, there's film. Just kidding. Yeah, so I had some upcoming camping trips and just general life bullshit coming up, so I thought it'd be a good idea to whip it out in the wild. The Canon AE-1, that is. The first place I went was Pismo Beach, California. I didn't get too much footage, but I did power through a roll of Portra 400 pretty quickly. I was shooting with the Helios 58mm lens.
Good morning. Just woke up because someone is riding their ATV in circles around my car. I'm gonna load up the AE1 and shoot a little bit. It's not really like the best conditions. It's kind of overcast. Let's get to it.
Quick side note, beach camping, not as fun as it might seem, unless you enjoy sand in your crack. One thing I noted from this trip about using the camera is that you don't have to turn it on and off, so it was pretty clutch for capturing quick moments of my friends being dumbasses. Later that week, I met up with the master himself, Caleb.
Why the f are you doing an AE1 video? Everyone has a goddamn AE1. Stop wasting my time.
So we went out to shoot some abandoned houses, which are the only houses that are even remotely affordable in Los Angeles. I shot on Kodak Color Plus, and I used my alternate lens, the Takumar 35mm f2. Last but not least, I went camping again, this time in Big Bear, just about a week later. The campsite was really cool, actually. We climbed some rocks and there's a really epic sunset. For this trip, I switched back to my Helios lens and I shot with Kodak Color Plus once again. At one point, I mounted my flash to the bottom of the AE1 to get some goddamn lighting up in here. The fastest the AE1 can shoot with a flash is about 1/60th of a second, so don't you dare try going faster than that.
Time to head home, Baxter.
So that's about it. All in all, this is a really solid camera, even if I consider it to be kind of plain. I mean, it's not going to get you laid, but it will certainly produce. Just like how that aforementioned turkey sandwich will taste like mostly bread, but you know, it's food. I guess what I'm saying is, this camera is nothing fancy, but it doesn't have to be, because that's not what matters. It's solid and it won't let you down. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I would honestly recommend this camera to anyone who is in the market for just a new camera in general, especially beginners who are looking to get into the wonderful world of film photography. Oddly enough, out of all my cameras, this is the one that gets recognized the most by people out in the wild. Doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. People have come up to me and asked me if that's an AE1 slung over my shoulders. More often than not, they have a story to tell about an AE1 that they used to own. And then I flush the urinal, wash my hands, and leave.